Welcome to the Justice Lens, where we look at everything through a justice lens. Now, I didn't want to do this. I want to talk about other things in other places, but if you're following the news, if you are watching on your television screen or reading through your social media feeds, you've seen tons and tons of videos and opinions and discussions about ICE. In the United States, ICE is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, and they have been wreaking havoc all across the country in America, and they are operating in a way that is honestly just astounding, horrific, and unprecedented. It seems unprecedented the way things are going and what ICE is doing. And so I did want to take a little bit of time on the podcast, on this video, to talk about ICE and to talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and to be honest about the fact that although the images are shocking and everything seems to be so egregious, it actually isn't unprecedented. It actually isn't new. And it actually isn't something that you should be shocked about. You shouldn't be. ICE has been around for a long time, and they've been doing this for a long time. We're able to see it now, so it's jarring to watch it on screen on a phone, but this is not new at all. And so on this episode, we're going to talk about three major things I want to get across to you. One, why ICE was created. Why do we even have ICE? Why is it even existing at all? We'll talk about that. Two, we're going to talk about how this agency, this operation, is a bipartisan effort. There is no sense, and you shouldn't buy into the lie that one administration is using or misusing ICE, whereas another is using it or was using it properly. ICE has always done this. ICE has always operated this way. It's a bipartisan thing. And three, and most importantly, why we need to get rid of ICE. We cannot have this agency any longer. We just cannot. We can't have this type of what they're calling enforcement take place in our country. It is dangerous, it's terrorizing, and it's destabilizing to these communities and to the local and state officials who are responsible for governing those areas. And so we're going to talk about all of that because I know you saw, even if you have been keeping up, I know you saw that on January 24th, an ICU nurse, a white middle-aged man in Minneapolis at a protest, not really protesting, just filming and doing things that are legal, was shot and killed by ICE agents or by federal agents working for the Department of Homeland Security, which happened weeks after ICE agents shot and killed Renee Good, who is middle-aged, white woman. She's a mom, and she was driving her car away from these agents who were trying to, I don't know if they're trying to detain her, trying to question her, what their intentions were, but she was not interested. She was driving away. They shot into the vehicle, killed her. Those are the two most recent murders that's been happened with this agency. We know, if you've been keeping up, people have been dying throughout ICE's existence, whether in their detention facilities or at their hands directly. And so this is not a new phenomenon. This is not a new occurrence. And so we got to talk about all this stuff because it's really, really dangerous when ICE is roaming around doing what they're doing. So let's talk about ICE today. And let's start by talking about how they were created. And so ICE began as an agency in 2003. It started in the aftermath of 9/11. I'm old enough. I remember 9/11. I remember September 11th, 2001, when those planes smashed into the World Trade Center and thousands of Americans died on that day. Tens of thousands were injured. And even to this day, the first responders, the firefighters who responded, have medical issues as a result of that attack. It was horrific. It was jarring. And it changed everything. How we travel, how we view people, how we operate as a government, as a society. It changed everything. It was that traumatic for the country. And in the wake of that, we went to war in Iraq. We went to war in Afghanistan. We had this war on terror. And in that environment, in that world, that's when ICE was created. It was created in 2003 to, at least in the words of the administration at the time, to crack down on illegal immigration and to protect the country from potential terrorists, right? It was a terrorist prevention tool. The idea was these people are coming in illegally to try and harm America. And so we need ICE. We need this new agency to protect us. He created this new department called Department of Homeland Security, put all these different agencies under it to protect America. And that is what we were told ICE was going to be all about. Protecting America from potential terrorists and potential terrorism. But guess what? That's not what happened. It's not what happened at all. And there's never been a point in ICE's existence where it has been focused on any kind of counterterrorism activity or any kind of terrorist prevention protocol. That's never been the case. It has always been about removing people from America who the leadership in America believes shouldn't be here for whatever reason. Not because they're criminals, not because they might be terrorists or working with terrorist networks, not because they're here to commit crimes or to harm people. It was always the idea that our country is changing and we need to stop all of these changes. And that's what ICE has always done from the very beginning. And we know that because when we look at who ICE deports, who they detain, who they arrest, by and large, they're not criminals. They're not tied to any terrorist networks. They're not a part of any terrorist organizations. They're not. Most of them, they're seeking asylum, trying to get away from violence in their home countries. A lot of them are trying to find work and make money to send back home to their families. A lot of them are coming for a better life because we've always told the world that America is better. The American dream can be achieved by anyone, and they're coming to try to achieve it. That's what they're trying to do. And ICE is there to get them out, to take advantage of our broken immigration system, to find reasons to detain and deport whoever people working in ICE, people in the administration, who they don't want to have in this country. That's what it's always been. And don't be fooled. Don't believe that national security or terrorism or any kind of law enforcement is the driving force behind ICE's activities. It's not. It never has been. It's never been the case where ICE has existed to prevent violent criminals from coming in or to prevent potential terrorists from acting on their terrorist plans. That's not it. They're not breaking up sleeper cells across the country and detaining terrorists and breaking up their networks. They're deporting people who have come from other countries looking for a better life. That's what they've done. That's what they've continued to do. Throughout the years, throughout different administrations, that's what has happened. And trust me, it's not an accident. It's not an accident that ICE has so much support from the government, so much funding, so many facilities, so many agents, so many tools to carry out their enforcement. Because let's be honest, if you're trying to detain people who are here without the right documentation, take them to court to see if they should stay here or not, you don't need this whole apparatus in place to do it. You don't need military grade weaponry. You don't need sprawling detention centers and facilities. You don't need any of that to enforce immigration policy, which is what we're talking about. Not criminal law. Criminals get arrested by police, they go to trial, then they go to jail. That's what happens to criminals. These detention centers, they exist outside of the laws. They exist outside of due process. They exist outside of the typical way that laws are enforced. They're just grabbing people off the street, throwing them in detention. No trials, no lawyers, no defense, no constitutional protection at all. And then they're deported. That's what ICE is doing. And they've been doing it. It's not an accident. This is an expansion of our carceral system. People talk about mass incarceration. This is another element of it, broadening the scope of what the government can do to imprison, and in this case, remove people that they just don't want to be here. And it's bipartisan, right? I got my notes here. I just want to make sure I get everything on the table because this is what ICE is doing. And so when you think about different administrations and how they've utilized ICE, it's always been the same thing. This has occurred under every administration since ICE has existed. When Bush was in office, 2003, when he started ICE, deportation, mass deportation of immigrants, no matter what they were here for, no matter what their status was, got rid of them all. Well, got rid of as many as he could as he fought the war on terror, quote unquote. Now, many people want to believe that when Obama came into the presidency, that he did things differently. He used the tools of government in a way that was more respectful, that was more responsible, and that was kinder and more driven towards the rule of law and the way we should operate as a society. But let's just be clear. He said what he needed to say, but on the ground, in practice, he used ICE and maximized its effectiveness and efficiencies unlike any other president. And so under Obama, you had the highest levels of deportation in the history of the country. You had an extreme expansion of surveillance and data collection, data sharing that we've had up to that point. And along with that, you had immigration enforcement bound up in local law enforcement to the point where somebody's driving down the street and they get pulled over for speeding. If they have an accent or if they happen to speak a different language, they become a target for deportation just from a simple minor traffic stop. And that's the way Obama expanded the way that ICE functioned and operated when he was in the administration. And the prime example of that was this program that he started called the Secure Communities Program. And in this program, local law enforcement and ICE work directly together, sharing information to enhance ICE's ability to deport people who they believed were here without the proper documentation, right? So what ICE would do is they would send fingerprint information, they would send data to these local police stations and these local law enforcement agencies. And whenever there was a potential minor offense or any kind of law enforcement activity on a local level, they ran that information through these databases that ICE provided. If anybody came up, they sent the information to ICE. ICE would come, take them, detain, and deport them. That's what they did. And they did it together, united with the idea that we want to get rid of these people. We want to remove these people from the country, no matter what the offense was, right? Speeding ticket, shoplifting, any kind of offense whatsoever was used as a pretext to run their information and try to deport them. And so you could imagine what this was like if you actually lived in these communities. You're so afraid of being deported if you're here without documentation, if you just come over, if your visa expired, you can't even function in society. And people were being incentivized to tell on other people, to bring other people to the attention of law enforcement and ICE to have them deported. And it was even used as threats, right? If you had somebody working for you, they came late. If they had somebody working for you and they didn't show up and do their job correctly, you would threaten them with deportation. Not just firing them, not just docking their pay, you would threaten them with deportation. Because you had the ability to just send their information over and they're coming and they're going to deport. That's what this program did. It made that connection firm and consistent across the board. That's not how immigration enforcement works. That's not how these policies were meant to be put into practice. And so people were hoping, and they told themselves, oh, we're doing it this way to make sure that if there's any violent criminal elements in our community that's also undocumented, we can remove them completely from our city, from our state. That's what we were told, right? Murderers, drug dealers, traffickers, these kinds of criminals. This is what ICE was going to go after and remove and deport. But that's not what happened. Anybody could get deported, and their families. Because you're here without the proper documentation. And so this was all under President Obama. And I like Obama. I really do. I'm glad he became president. I'm glad we had a black president. I'm glad that he represented himself, his family, the first family. They were a great symbol and image to the world of what possibilities were. But on this, no, he didn't do the right thing on this one. He should have gotten rid of ICE. He should have taken ICE, defunded it. He should have dismantled it, and he should have found more humane ways of dealing with our immigration issues. But that's my point. In America, ICE is doing what it's supposed to do, and it always has under each administration. And now, of course, we have Trump. He loves ICE. He deploys ICE. He celebrates ICE. He promotes ICE whenever he can because he wants people to think that he's doing the dirty work of getting, quote unquote, the illegals out of our country. And so he's basically just pulled the mask off, removed any pretense, and said, look, this is what ICE is doing. It's getting rid of immigrants, all of them. And we're going to go to all of these cities where we think immigrants are, and we're getting rid of them. And so that's what he did. And that's what ICE has always done. He's just been very clear and very transparent about his intentions and about ICE's mission as it does its enforcement actions. You know, I can appreciate that. I appreciate that. That's exactly what it is. And I'm glad somebody's saying it. And we're seeing it on the screen. He's promoting it. He has celebrities riding around with ICE agents when they do their work. He's promoting his desire to expand the number of agents he has. They're signing bonuses and incentives, and they're removing restrictions and minimizing training requirements to get as many agents as possible to do the work of removing the immigrants from America. And I say the immigrants, it's not like he's only going after the undocumented ones. There have been many cases where green card holders have been grabbed, detained, and deported. There have been many instances where American citizens, just because they have a different sounding name or they have a tattoo somewhere or they have a strong accent, they're getting grabbed, rounded up, and deported. And not even deported to a reasonable country where they might be from, just a place where we can send them. a big super prison in El Salvador, prisons in Honduras, these places where none of these people have ever been to, don't even speak the language, they don't speak Spanish, they don't know what you're doing. They just wake up, they're on a plane flying to another country and being dropped off and left there in a prison. That's what's happening. That's what ICE is doing. And they've gone so far as to grab people who are saying things about ICE that they don't like. If you write opinion pieces, if you protest, if you demonstrate against what ICE is doing, you can get detained. You can get deported. You can be taken out of our society. And that's what's happening. And that's been happening. That's how these two most recent murders took place. They weren't immigrants. They weren't foreigners. They were born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they got murdered by ICE because their presence was a problem for them. That's what ICE is doing. And so the fear, the scare tactics, the harsh approach to this type of activity is what they're trying to get across. This is who we are. This is what we're doing. Get out or be taken out. That's the line. People are seeing it now. It's on your phone. It's on the news. The deaths are being talked about, at least in the media. Now we know what's going on. And now people are starting to see ICE for what it truly is. And what it truly is a paramilitary militia group deployed by the executive branch to carry out whatever the mission is of the president. In this case, it's getting rid of immigrants and people who protest against him and his policies. That's what they're doing. There's no way around it. I mean, they're detaining students, grabbing them off of college campuses with student visas, green card holders. That's what's happening. That's what ICE is doing. And so, from my view, there's no other way to talk about it except to say that ICE, as an organization, is engaging in domestic, state-sponsored, extensive, expanded terrorism on the people in the United States of America. That's what they're doing. That's what this is. And it's because of that we have to get rid of ICE. We cannot allow this agency to continue any longer in any form. We can't. You can try to tell me we should, that there could be reforms, additional training, more accountability. There's no reason to do. It's not possible. It's not possible. And I know it's not possible because we've had multiple administrations who had access to ICE and its capabilities, and we've seen how they've used it. We've seen what's happened to the communities that they've entered into and how they've completely dismantled and terrorized those communities. There's no way around it. ICE needs to go. It has to go. Abolish it, demolish it, whatever you want to do. The agents, listen, take the agents, reassign them. There's plenty of work to do. The government has plenty of work to do. There are violent criminals out there. There are people who should be arrested and brought to trial and prosecuted. There are people like that out there. So if these agents are so, we need to enforce the laws, we got police departments, we've got, the FBI and the DEA and the ATF. Look, you can go there, meet those training requirements, go into those agencies and carry out true law enforcement operations. Do that. What we really need to do is fix the immigration system, because the people who are here without documentation aren't here to commit crimes by and large, for the most part. They're trying to get a better life for them and their families. They're trying to work. They're trying to escape persecution and violence and death from where they're from, places all across the world. That's what they're here for. They're not here to commit crimes because they know they'll be deported if they got caught committing crimes. They know better. They want to stay here and work and make money and support their families. And we don't need ICE for any of that. What we need are more judges in the immigration courts. We need more immigration lawyers. We need a better immigration system. We have so many people coming and so little capacity that all you're trying to do now is just ground them up and kick them out. They have valid claims, and the laws allow them to come and make those claims and have their day in court. They should have that day in court. So we need to get rid of ICE. Get rid of it. This is what I mean. ICE as an agency should no longer exist. Anything connected to ICE should no longer exist. So the agency itself, leadership, gone. Don't need it. Detention centers, ICE detention facilities, why do you even have them? You don't need them. Get rid of them. Demolish them, turn them into a mall, turn them into a church. Don't just grab people and put them in detention and then deport them. We don't need that. So get rid of the detention centers, get rid of the agency, reassign all the agents without a trace. No more ICE, no more raids on factories and stores and facilities. They just run in and just grab people that look like they're not American. Just grab them and they just throw them in a truck, like abducting them. We don't need that anymore. We don't need this idea, this threat of deportation to keep people in line, right? Don't protest. Don't speak out, or we're going to deport you. We're going to grab you. We have ICE here. They're going to detain you. Nobody will see you again. We don't need that kind of threatening, menacing government overreach in the community. We don't need that. You don't like what people are saying? Then don't listen. If you don't like what they're saying, make changes. Don't threaten with deportation. We don't need that either. And so I'm saying we need to not just abolish and demolish ICE. Get rid of it. Be done with it. And once you're done with ICE, then ask yourself a deeper question. Because ICE's existence is only supported and is only continued because of how we as Americans feel about immigrants. Let's just be clear about that. The reason people are upset now and not last year or the year before that is because we're seeing white Americans get killed by this agency. But let's just be clear. They've been killing people for decades now, at least 2 decades now. And on the justice lens, we have to look at the world differently. What do we think justice looks like for people who are coming into America desperate for a better future, desperate for a better life for their children, desperate to escape the horrors of their previous country's existence? What does it look like? What if we actually cared about the immigrants who come over? What if we actually considered what they're concerned about and responded to it? What if we actually ingratiated them into our societies, allowed them to contribute the way they've always done? They've always worked in construction. They've always worked in childcare. They've always worked in agriculture. They've always worked in these factories. They've always done this. They've always built homes. They've always done that. That's what they've been doing since they've come. And we actually need them to do that to keep this country moving and progressing forward. So how about, instead of demonizing, detaining, and deporting them, what if we cared, considered, and continued to give them opportunities to have a better life, to have a better future? Because I'm confident in our law enforcement agencies. I'm confident in them. If somebody's committing a crime, the police will investigate. They'll arrest the person who committed the crime. That person will go to court. And then the charges will be brought against them. And if one of those charges includes some type of immigration violation, it will be enforced in the court. In the court system. We have a court system that can do that. And so that is what we need to have happen. And that's why all throughout this video, I've been talking about people without proper documentation, not illegal immigrants, because people aren't illegal. There's nothing illegal about a person. They're a person. They're a human being. They came over in a way that may not align with the policy. It doesn't make them illegal. It just means the paperwork didn't go through, or the procedure is faulty and they can't get where they need to go to be here with the right documentation, with the right card, the right number, the right visa, the right whatever. That's what that means. And so let's not act like people who don't have this documentation are somehow illegal, criminal elements in our society. They're not. They're not criminals. It's not a crime to come over and ask for asylum. It's not a crime to say, I want to come here and work and protect my family from violence. That's not a crime. The crime is that we don't have a system in place to help them do that. The crime is we send them back to those places, and now they're at risk, and even worse, probably going to be murdered, probably going to be killed by whatever gang elements, whatever criminal elements are in the place that they're fleeing. That's the crime. And so we need to think differently and be more mindful of what people who are coming over here are trying to do, and how we as a society can help them do that. We can help them. We can help them. And of course, the first thing you do is you tell ICE to go away, to stay out of your community. I love when people stand up to ICE and they say, you cannot come into our community and terrorize our neighbors because they look different than you do. Love that. Somebody asked me the other day, what if ICE came into your neighborhood where you live? What would you do? I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't help them. I wouldn't give them any assistance, no names, no addresses. You need to stay out of our community. You don't belong here. We love the people who are here. We love the people who have decided to come to this country and make it better. We love them. We don't love what you're doing. We don't love how you're trying to terrorize and destabilize our community. All that to say, we need to get rid of ICE once and for all. And we need to make sure that anybody who is involved with ICE, or who trusts ICE, or who believes ICE is doing something helpful, that they have the right information and understanding of what's truly taking place and what's truly happening across the country. And so that's it. That's it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And remember to stay strong and keep fighting.